Hi, it's time for another verb of the day. Today's verb is purchase. Let's take a moment to review the definition of this verb. Purchase is really just another way to say to buy something. So here I'm acquiring or I'm getting something by paying for it, right? I'm exchanging something for money. You should know that the verb purchase is a regular verb. To make the progressive form of this verb, I need to drop the E before I add ing to form purchasing. The past tense and participle forms of this verb can be made by adding the letter D since this verb already ends in an E. Our base verb, purchase, ends in an unvoiced S sound. This means that when I add the past tense ending, I'm going to make a T sound. It should sound like this: purchased, purchased. Okay? Now notice I'm not adding an extra syllable as I add that ending. So just a T sound. Now, there is one phrasal verb you might encounter. The meaning here is not significantly different, but I thought it's always good to have some examples. So, purchase for might mean that we are buying something as a gift. We might be buying something for use by someone or something else, or we might be buying something for a particular purpose. I have three example sentences here just to help illustrate how you might see this used. One is we purchased some books for his birthday, right? So that might be an example of that idea of a gift. We have they purchased the cabin for a weekend retreat, and she purchased a new computer for college. These last two might be more of that like specific purpose, kind of a reason behind why something was acquired, why we paid money for it. Okay. Now, we're going to spend a moment continuing to practice our verb of the day, purchase, in a couple different verb tenses. Today, we're going to practice the simple past tense and the present perfect progressive. We'll start with the simple past tense. We use this verb tense to talk about actions that were completed at a known point in the past. You might see time signals in these sentences, words like yesterday, last year, or even a specific date in the past. But they're not going to be in every simple past tense sentence. Sometimes that completed time has already been mentioned, and so it's sort of implied as you continue to write or as you continue to speak with someone. When you go to make sentences in the simple past tense, the nice thing is that our structure is going to stay the same no matter what our subject is. So in the affirmative, I'm going to have my subject, and then I'm going to have that ed form of my verb because this is a regular verb. My example sentence is, we purchased new cell phones last year. So here, maybe I'm talking about my family. You can see that time signal last year. Okay. Now, when I go to make a negative simple past tense sentence, my structure is going to be to have my subject, right? Then did not, and then the base verb. So notice I'm not using the ed form of the verb in the simple past tense negative sentences. Here's another example. The suspect left the store with a cart full of things she didn't purchase. Okay. So here we're describing someone who did not purchase, right, but just took things. So this sounds like we're describing someone who has stolen things. Finally, let's look at making a yes or no question in the simple past tense. To do this, I start with did, then I have my subject, and then the base verb. So again, notice in my yes or no question, I am not using the ed form of the verb. I'm only using that ed form in the affirmative. Here's another example sentence. Did you purchase a wedding gift for the happy couple? Okay. Now let's move on and talk about the present perfect progressive. Right? Some teachers and some books call this present perfect continuous, and that is fine. It means exactly the same thing. I'll explain why I use the word progressive in just a moment, but first, let's talk about why we're using that verb tense. Many times we're talking about actions that started in the past and that are continuing into the present. And we specifically use this present perfect progressive many times to note how long an action has been continuing. Now, the reason I like to say present perfect progressive with my students is that the three P's help me remember that I need three parts to form my verb. So in the affirmative, I'm going to have my subject, and then I'm going to use have or has. So it depends on what my subject is. Got to pay attention to that, have or has. Then I use the participle been, B-E-E-N, and then I use that ing form of my verb. Okay, so quick recap here. If my subject is I, you, we, or they, I use have, been, and with our verb of the day, let's say purchasing. But if my subject is he, she, or it, I'm going to use has been purchasing. Okay? You can see this in my example sentence. Consumers have been purchasing more EVs year after year. So here, EVs is a shortened term for electric vehicles. Okay? So we're, again, kind of focused on how long that action has been going on year after year after year. Okay? Now, if I want to make a negative present perfect progressive sentence, again, I pay attention to my subject, right? And then I'm going to use have or has, then not, then the participle been, then the ing from the verb. You might also notice the contractions, haven't been in that ing form, or hasn't been in the ing form. Here's another example sentence. We haven't been purchasing any tomatoes because we grow enough in our garden. So here someone is noting, right, this is an action that hasn't been continuing for some time. Finally, I can make yes or no questions in the present perfect progressive. I do this by starting with have or has, whichever form matches my subject. That subject comes next. Then you're going to see the participle been and the ing form of the verb. Here's my last example. Has she been purchasing secondhand clothes for a long time? Again, this is a question really focused on how long an action has been occurring. Now let's spend a moment looking at some words that are related to our verb purchase. And the first word we're going to discuss today is just the noun form of this word. So the noun purchase, you'll notice, has exactly the same spelling and exactly the same pronunciation. When I use the noun purchase, I could be referring to the action of buying something, right? So maybe I ask, I show someone something and say, is this available for purchase? That would be one way. Second way, I might use this word as a noun to refer to anything, any object that has been bought. So maybe a friend returns from a shopping trip and I say something like, let's see your purchases, right? Let's see what you bought. Another related word you might hear is the noun purchaser. So this is just another way to refer to a person who is buying something. Hopefully you notice that suffix, that er, that many times is going to refer to a person who, and then we can look at that root word. Okay, so an example of purchaser in a sentence might be, half of vinyl record purchasers don't even own a record player. It's a funny headline I saw recently. So a lot of people are acquiring, buying these items, but they can't actually use them. So some of them are just for collection purposes. Another related word you might hear is purchasing department. And sometimes in certain companies and workplaces, this just gets shortened down into purchasing. So when you hear purchasing department, or you're hearing that shortened form, we're referring to a department within a company or within an organization who's responsible for buying goods, materials, supplies, etc. Right? Kind of makes sense, right? Their responsibility is connected to acquiring things for the company or for the company's employees. An example of this might be he's worked in purchasing for 5 years. The last related word you might encounter is the noun purchasing order. Sometimes this gets shortened to just purchase order, and that's fine as well. So within many companies, this is again a formal document that someone uses in order to request that a certain item be bought. So you might receive some communication from this department, like all purchase orders must be submitted by 4 o'clock today. Thanks so much for watching today's video. I hope you have a great day.